welcome to the Ottawa Herald's 2012 Kansas Primary Candidate Interviews. I'm Crystal Herber, here with Mr. Rick Croucher, Republican candidate for Franklin County Sheriff. Hello, Mr. Croucher.
Hi there.
All right, let's get started. First question, why are you running?
I like law enforcement. I'm real strong in wanting to help other people and the citizens of Franklin County.
While law enforcement experience is in your background, you don't have as much experience as your competition. How are you combating that to convince people to vote for you?
You know, Mr. Curry made a statement last night before him. It's not the time you have invested, it's what you've done with the time that you've been there. Without a doubt, I've been supervisor in law enforcement for several years. I've had the ability to work in the private sector with a large company and work with some budgeting and stuff there also, which also with the two combined makes you stronger going into the Sheriff's Department. When you work just solely through law enforcement agency and you're brought up to that area, it don't let you see some of the other ways to do and handle situations that you learn from the outside.
Okay. You talked previously about how honest you are. Why is that so important to you, and how will you use that honesty if elected?
I am very straightforward. I'm not going to beat around the bush about any questions or anything asked to me. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know the answer. But honesty is the quickest way to solve a problem or a situation. I mean, as long as we can both be straightforward and work together in solving a problem, we'll get a whole lot further. My men, I lead by example. And all the men and women that are with the jail, 911 dispatch, and sheriff's department have to set examples and lead by example for the entire community.
Being sheriff is about more than just enforcing the laws in the county. How would you handle the many other duties a sheriff must take care of, including being an administrator of an office, compiling a budget, etc.?
Such as Mr. Guy said last night, he's never been there, he'd have to see it. Every budget's a little bit different depending on what area you're working in. The budget you have to look at, and Mr. Curry's done a good job in reducing the budget over the past few years, but there's still some overspending in areas and stuff, and those areas just have to be attacked and brought into the budget. You just have to put the time into it, but you also still have to have the time, if there's a crisis or your men need help, that you get this done in a timely manner where you can be there for your men and women also.
Is there a particular area in the budget that you'd like to see, you feel could be cut?
Those three departments have overtime expenses in excess of $131,000. If you done that in the private sector, it's unacceptable. You wouldn't have a job. That budget, the first year in office, without a doubt, I could cut greater than half the first year there.
Is there something in the current sheriff's performance you feel you could improve on if elected?
He really emphasizes a lot on honesty, integrity, willingness to help people. I've knocked on a lot of doors, talked to a lot of people. There's no doubt when it comes to character that I feel I can lead considerably better than the man in office now or the other individuals. I've just been blessed with I've had a lot of good people work for me and stuff, and leadership and the ability to lead is, some people can do it and some people can't, and I've just been very fortunate in the private sector and in law enforcement that I have been promoted to positions of leadership rather quickly.
You mentioned that you would like to bring the sheriff's office to a higher level. What do you mean by that higher level, and how would you do that?
Overall functions. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of areas I think can be improved on. Patrol in the county, the disposition and the way we handle ourselves with citizens of the community, just our overall appearance. I want with the department total transparency when it comes to budgets or anything else. people have asked me where X amount of dollars have gone, and nobody seems to know the answers. We've got to have total transparency across all the departments. The willingness to work with other departments, Osage County and some of these other neighboring counties, the city of Ottawa, we have to all work hand in hand. And I think we can build on all of those areas considerably yet.
Last night at the candidate forum, you did a lot of agreeing with your competitors. What would you for sure change about that office if you were elected?
Our overall appearance to the community right now, I think, is lacking. I want, this department used to be at a very high professional level, Mr. Bowling, Mr. Davis, but unfortunately to the gentleman that's in office now, there's been a lot of issues brought up. Those issues hurt the department. I mean, he is the overall leader of this department, and there's been a lot brought out. You guys have done your own investigations. I mean, just different things, but I've talked and knocked on a lot of people on doors, and a response from the officers, on whether they're working an accident or their conduct or what they're doing. We have to really bring ourselves up to a very high level of professionalism. I mean, I've talked with Mr. Butler at the PD, and he wants to win this award for recognition on the department's professionalism. I would like to attack those same areas and levels of professionalism too, because it's been a very good, strong department. But I think right now we're going the opposite direction where it's been in the past.
Okay. What do you feel is the biggest criminal problem in the county, and if elected, how would you work to combat that problem?
Burglaries. Considerable amount of burglaries in the county. But the number one deterrent is visibility. And when you talk to PD officers who feel like the county officers are in the city of Ottawa more than they're out in the county, intercepting their calls is an issue. We have to get these patrolmen out in the counties. And if we got a rash of burglaries going on, I need to be there also. I mean, we have to show a force of where these burglaries are taking place at. We have to deter them and also work on solving those crimes and finding who's responsible for them.
How would you increase the presence of the deputies in the county while at the same time keeping overtime costs down?
Overtime costs, there's a whole lot of factors that go in overtime. Dispatchers have left, somebody not showing up, or you had to keep an officer over in the jail, officers taking reports, get tied up at the end of a shift. We need to alleviate a lot of those overtime factors, you know, on getting these officers later on in the week, rather than running overtime, getting them the time off that they stayed over. I mean, I see this in the individual world, in personal or private offices. You just can't have an overtime budget that great. There's ways to get around it. The officers, to get them out in the county, your immediate supervisors over the patrolmen have to be held accountable. I mean, if you have a fatality accident and they're all tied up in it today, that's one thing. But when it's just daily routine police work or sheriff work, these supervisors have to be held accountable for getting the individuals under them out to the county and in rural areas where they belong.
So what you're saying is the overtime costs are coming more from routine making out reports rather than them patrolling extra time.
And it's not, they're not patrolling extra time. That's absolutely not the case. That's obvious. The overtime is, you've got court costs, you know, these individuals got to testify in court. But if they're in court 4 hours today and we've got a full shift tomorrow or the next day, we can cut the hours on that officer working that day to reduce the overtime wages that we're paying out.
You've worked for 2 other law enforcement agencies in the county. What is your relationship with the other law enforcement in the county right now?
Ottawa PD. Of course, I've worked with several of the order or supervisory type officers. I get along with all of them. I mean, I have strong rapport with fellow officers I've been there with. The community of Wellsville, naturally I don't live there. I've been away from there for some time. I have a boy that lives there. He knows a couple of the officers in Wellsville, but I don't have a relationship with the Wellsville Police Department now.
How would you work to improve or build that relationship if you were elected?
Well, as sheriff, you need to go to those departments. You need to go to the city commission meetings. I'm not about sending a liaison officer to go out and do the functions that I'll be at in the first place. You go there and you work with the city commissions, with the local law enforcement agencies that are there, and come up with a game plan on how everybody wants to help and aid each other. I mean, I know Wellsville's always been real good if there's a call just within reason outside the city limits. Them guys will go out and help and handle that situation before we get an officer there. But we have to work hand in hand, back and forth, and all be in agreement with what we're doing is what each other really wants.
You chose to file by petition. Explain that move and the effect it has had on your campaign.
Oh, that goes back to a little bit of work. I mean, I've been fortunate in law enforcement, in the private sector, any place I've gone. People have pretty quickly picked me up and put me in supervisory positions. I really work hard at what I'm doing. The petition, in my eyes, before going down and paying to run for office or going by petition, that petition required 238, or I forget how many signatures. I turned in roughly 260 signatures. That put me face to face with 260 people. So I spent a lot of gas and a lot of time and effort put into this petition, but I feel it's a lot more personable than to just go down and file for office.
If you were elected, what would your relationship with the general public be as far as sharing information, education, and openness?
That goes back, totally transparent. But education and my involvement with the community, I like people. Any place I can help or be, I want there. And the churches and all the organizations, Sure Optimist, Lions Clubs and stuff, whenever they have dinners and feeds, I want to be the type of sheriff that are at those functions and intermingle with those people. It allows me to hear different views of what they're seeing and going on in the community as a whole.
What kinds of education programs would you set up to help at-risk youth?
That is something that would have to be at the at-risk youth. You've got to take maybe the counselors from all the schools in Franklin County. You're going to have to go to Elizabeth Layton Center. You're going to have to put a team of people, all with different experiences, together and come up with different ideas to see how we can attack those problems.
What techniques would you employ to prevent crime in the county?
Number one technique is visibility. I keep going back to that, but we have to have the visibility in the county. We've got all these officers with patrol cars right now are practically taking cars home, and that's fine. But we've got to really up and get these cars out in the county and out of the city and make ourselves more visible. To deter crime, hopefully, our detectives are good, knowledgeable detectives, and that we have a strong history of solving a lot of these cases. But a lot of this, I've been fortunate with the PD that as a supervisor and stuff, as a patrolman, I've helped with, if there's a crime, that officer individual gets to pursue and try to see how much he can solve with that crime. Once it's to a certain extent, the detectives need to be involved, we'll bring a detective in. But it also gives the officers a sense of accomplishment, and we need to get everybody working to solve these crimes together.
A big part of the sheriff's job is interacting with the media. What would your policy be as far as conveying information to the media?
Right now they have a liaison officer pretty much that relays and talks to you with the media. I know the past sheriffs in the past have dealt with the media. I don't know that I need a full-time liaison officer. I mean, this is one individual we're taking off the patrol. I, myself, or the undersheriff, I am perfectly confident can handle a visit with the media at any time they want to talk. And we'll have a good relationship with them.
So you would be willing to share information with the media and with, I suppose you said that you would be trying to go to all these meetings and all these other things and be visible. Where would you get the time to visit with the media, and how accessible would you be? to them?
Well, when I say these meetings, I mean your commission meetings are running what, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock on evenings. The media is not wanting to meet at those times, usually. The council meetings are on, but I mean, we would work together, we'd come up with a plan, and we'd come up with a time frame when we could meet. You say share information, it's the same scenarios where they're at now. We're going to share what information we can share, obviously, and not jeopardize a crime or an investigation that's ongoing.
Okay. And just to clarify, you don't believe you would employ a public information officer should you be elected?
At this time, I don't think that is a necessity.
The sheriff has a fund that he may choose to spend on a variety of things without the discretion of the county commission. What would be important for you to spend it on if you were elected?
Education. And Mr. Curry has done a good job across the county and stuff, and working to establish programs. But you know, there's never an end. I mean, that's an ongoing battle. I mean, the home run. There's an article in the paper just a few days ago about how Franklin County is really above or below average on several areas with our children. We need to really get a good education program countywide for our youth. I mean, the city of Ottawa has a good program with the DARE program, but we really need to get in all these schools and stuff and educate the young youth about the dangers of alcohol and drugs.
There are more than 30 employees in the sheriff's office. Do you feel you have the leadership experience to effectively lead them?
Beyond a doubt.
And why is that?
I have just been very fortunate that in management leadership roles that I've maybe just had really good personnel under me. But even now, where I'm employed at now, there was issues and stuff. Once I became supervisory in different areas, a lot of those issues have gone away. I've just been blessed with the abilities to lead and supervise personnel. And of course, I really go back to the #1 area in leadership is you lead by example.
Tell me how your campaign is going so far.
Ask the other two candidates. I think it just depends who you talk to. I cannot get a good feel on it. I know you guys ran a poll just here in the last day or two on vote for who you want for sheriff at this time if you're voting, but this is construed. I mean, when you have a man in office that tells all of his patrolmen and friends and everybody to get on the internet and start voting, you could watch that poll go from Mr. Geist was probably leading that poll by a pretty good margin to all of a sudden the current sheriff is leading that poll. Where am I? I'm sitting down here in the bottom. Does that discourage you? It can be discouraging, but that's so irrelevant, that poll. No. There's people that working at night that don't even know or have the ability. I mean, it's so construed.
How have you been received by constituents?
Such as the public and stuff?
Yes.
Very well. I mean, I have knocked on a lot of doors. I've talked to some of these other folks in other offices knocking on a lot of doors. People in different businesses that have the ability to meet several customers a day. Everybody's been real good with me. Everybody's really seemed really happy. I know the rural community. I mean, I am getting, several people wanting me to come out and meet different groups and different stuff. I know I'm very, very well received in the rural community. I'm very strong. If this went to vote today and we could go outside the city limits of Ottawa, which is where the sheriff department mainly, his responsibility is, I know I'm very confident in where I stand at this time. But as far as the city of Ottawa, I don't think they're quite as educated as what the rural residents are on what's really taking place and going on with the government now.
Okay, well, thank you. Again, I'm Crystal Herber with the Ottawa Herald, here with Republican candidate for Franklin County Sheriff, Rick Croucher. Thank you.